What kind of pushback have you gotten when proposing JSDoc versus TS, and do you find any to be valid? Well, I would say the main pushback is that if you haven't watched this presentation, it really sucks to work through the quirks. I cannot stress enough, anybody who believes that TypeScript was made for JavaScript, they're not in touch with reality. The problem with JSDoc is that JSDoc was made for Java. It was not made for JavaScript. So a lot of the syntax of JSDoc itself doesn't really make sense for JavaScript. It is a very ancient syntax that is meant for a different language. It is a port of JavaDoc. Likewise, TypeScript is a port of C#. TypeScript is not a superset of JavaScript. It is C# glued on to JavaScript. And so the tooling for using the TypeScript checker with JavaScript works, but the most rudimentary things, for example, what I talked about with you have to use at callback, you can't use at function. This is just insane. The idea that TypeScript doesn't know what a function is, that just blows my mind. That the fact that you can only use callback, because basically they kind of went in it with the idea of, well, if you're doing all this hierarchical class stuff, you would never put a function on an object because you'd create a class. But JavaScript, the basis of JavaScript is just functions and objects. That is what JavaScript is. And so a lot of the patterns that you have in Java and that you have in C# just don't match up with the patterns that you would produce in poor man's plain old JavaScript. And so that I think is the big thing against it, is the tooling is mediocre. If you like using JavaScript because you don't want to be using C#, because you don't like C#, then it gives you an edge to be able to work with vanilla JavaScript. But the tooling is not designed for JavaScript, and it shows. And as you play around with these very primitive and basic JavaScript patterns, you'll find strange edge cases that just make you go, huh? So that said, if you have this presentation handy, I think you have a strong case, because you can land with, this is how it's done in JavaScript, rather than having to fight through all of these bits and pieces and you'd be pulling your hair out, because it's very difficult to convince someone this is the way to do it when you can't show them the way to do it. And that's where I'm hoping that my presentation, I'm hoping that this presentation makes a broader impact than just Utah.js. I'm hoping that this is something that I can post to Reddit or whatever and actually get some notoriety for, in terms of providing the people who want this really the best resource on how to do it.